Hello, and welcome to Hanratty on Karate. So I had a request from a past student of mine, and the student actually trained with me when he was in his teens. He's now part of the psychology department in Ottawa Hospital, or University Hospital, I'm not sure which. But anyway, very nice man, and always remembers his training, and been in touch with me lately, and he had a few questions. He does follow the podcasts, and it was nice of him to miss me when I had a couple of health issues there over the Christmas and New Year. But anyway, he was talking about different gradings and stuff, and exactly what our curriculum does and how our teaching and grading system moves along. So just a few words about the grading system. Originally, there was no grading system in karate when it was in Okinawa. A person just trained until he was proficient. Now, when karate moved to Japan, the Japanese, ever the ones for bureaucracy, needed to know who was at what level, like who was classified as an instructor, who was a student, and what level of student. And as karate spread to the West, well, Westerners demanded a more structured and scientific approach, and they wanted to know just what they had to accomplish to achieve each rank and how far they were in relation to achieving their goals. And all these little short-term goals like different belt levels and stuff, right up until what they thought was the ultimate, which was black belt, which, of course, all of us who have been doing this for a long time know that's certainly not the ultimate aim. But as I say, this started with the Budokai, which was the martial arts governing body in Japan at the time. And when Funakoshi came over, they wanted to know, how do you differentiate between a beginner and a master? And so Funakoshi borrowed Jiro Kano's methods, and he'd developed a method for grading his students on a belt level for judo, which was Kano's forte. That was his art. This was acceptable to the Budokai, and the Dai Nippon Budokai I'm talking about, so some people just know it as DMB. They took their grading, Kano took his gradings originally from the game of Go, which is a very ancient chess-like game in Japan where stones are used on a checkerboard and you're supposed to surround the other stones. Anyway, a master was known as such and such, and there was different grades, much like modern chess games where they have a numbering system to number your expertise in chess. So the grading system satisfied a lot of things. It satisfied the DMB, and it also satisfied the Westerners, and they could see short-term goals to be achieved, and then they just wanted to know how to achieve them. And how to achieve them comes through your syllabus, really. So everybody's different, and what I teach for a class of absolute beginners, if I have a starting white belt class or a starting white belt, for that matter, then we start off teaching them the very, very basics, the body mechanics, how to breathe, how to strike, how to block. And we'll go through these continuously, and repetition is a very great tool in teaching beginners. You keep doing it until you get it right. It's like a kid learning to walk. If every time he fell down he didn't get up again, he'd never learn to walk. So we do the same thing in karate, and repetition breeds familiarity, and familiarity often leads to efficiency of movement and just lets the synapse path a lot quicker throughout the body, and the muscle memory kicks in. So what you should have, of course, is a standard grading system, and then everybody be on the same page. But unfortunately, politics and people being what they are, you're not going to get that. So what I do is I have rubrics that I use. Now, rubric is a set of scoring guidelines for evaluating your students, and you can do this from day one. How they make a fist. You teach them how to make a fist, you break it down, right? Fold the fingertips into the top of the palm, refold them into the center of the palm, thumb underneath, and making sure that the first and second knuckle make contact with the target first, okay? It's amazing how many people get that wrong because they never hit anything, and so they never see the value in making a correct fist with the correct weapon at the correct target. A lot of people, instructors included, don't get round to correcting this. Now, I correct it constantly. I'm a little pedantic in that regard. I correct everything constantly. I won't let you get away with much at all. So what you're doing when you've got a rubric is you can assign a score to each part. Like if you're teaching a kick, right? First of all, you want to have a look at the stance you're teaching the kick from. If it's a straight standing up stance, fine. How high do they lift their knee? Okay. Are they utilizing the hip in the extension of the lower leg? And is the foot in the right position? Are they striking with the ball of the foot? There's a whole lot of things involved. Now, maybe they lift their knee okay, but not so much on the snap. So when you look at your rubric, they need work on certain parts of it. Maybe they don't lift their knee enough, all right? So that score is a little bit down. And this is all a mental thing in the mind of the instructor, and he knows what to work on. But you really have to have a valid and reliable system, and it should be fair, right? Don't let them get away with it. They've all got to be fair. Everybody's got to do the same thing. But you're not going to get a level of quality that you want, and you've got nothing to measure it against if you don't use these kind of systems. And whatever criteria you apply, that's fine, okay? But what I do, I have a syllabus, and I've distributed this syllabus around quite a bit. I put it together in the early 90s, and I've refined it. And I think I can't remember when the last time I put it was probably in, I know 1990 I got the first copyright on it, but I think I've refined it a lot, and I believe the last time I republished was probably in 2005, 2006. And what I did then is I also made a DVD. Of course, DVDs are out of fashion now, but anyway, I made a DVD, and I put each of the grades on there. I had my students go through each of the grades, showing what was required and what I was looking for. Okay, so nothing was hidden. I always tell people what I'm expecting of them at each grade. So there's no kind of trickery involved in it. So it's a great little syllabus. I'm quite proud of it. It gives you all your katas you're required for each grade. It gives you all of the techniques that are required for each grade, how many times you should do it, and what I'm looking for in each grade. Obviously, I'm not looking for the same thing from a person going from white to yellow belt as I am from a Shodan going to Nidan, okay? And it does go up in complexity and difficulty of movement, and what I'm looking for with regards to body motion and attitude and just how you approach it. How you approach your training for each particular grade is just as important as what you do. And I always emphasize there's a minimum number of classes, a number of practices that you have to take between each grade, and that is within a certain time. For example, we have a minimum of 20 classes for the lower grades, say between 7th and 6th Q, which would be like orange to green belt. But you have to take those 20 classes within a 3-month period, all right, or a 4-month period, right? You can't just take a year off, come back, do your 20 classes, and then expect to grade. That's not going to work, okay? Training has to be constant, and you have to use perseverance within your training, otherwise it just doesn't work. It's like black belts who come back after 2 or 3 years and they go, well, I used to be a black belt, can I wear my black belt? You know what, usually they're injured within a week of coming back because they think they can do it the same as they did, and they can't, right? So they pull stuff here, there, and everywhere. So we start off generally at 9th Q. We don't use a 10Q system. I do teach Tokyuko kata, or Keion kata if you like, the basic kata, just block and punch, downward block and punch for kids, you know, for little tiger classes and stuff like that. But for adults, we go straight into Heian Shodan, and it's not really a difficult kata to learn. It does have a lot of depth to it that's not apparent when you first start. There is an awful lot of depth to Heian Shodan, and that's the first kata we use. But we also teach how to breathe, how to kiai, and Heian Shodan basically teaches you one breath, one movement. So it's really good for that, for forming your kime, your focus. and focus your muscles. So I'm looking for Heian Shodan, a decent front stance and a decent back stance. Now this depends more on the instructor than on the student, because the student's wanting to learn. And at the beginning, it's pretty obvious for anybody who's ever done any martial arts that the learning curve at the start is extremely steep, okay? It's almost all physical. There is some mental involved, but it's nearly all physical, and it's physically demanding, which can also be mentally demanding, but it takes your mind away. I always say, like, going to a training session is like taking your mind to the dry cleaners. It just gets flushed of all the everyday detritus and garbage that you've been looking at, and the politics and whatever's happening at home. You can't think of that when somebody's standing in front of you screaming Jodan and wanting to take your head off with a punch. The only thing you've got to think about is how to block properly, or how to counter, or how to evade, or how to beat him, his timing. Okay, all those things are involved, but you can't really think about anything else while you're doing that. And you have to get your body to act the way you want it to act, all right? And that's all part of your grading examinations. So with the curriculum I've got, I have the grading examination requirements are in black print, and then what the instructor's looking for and notes on what I want you to do or what I should be looking for in red. For example, in, say, 6Q, which you're going for green belt. And green belt is kind of a middle stepping stone from white belt to Shodan as far as I'm concerned. This is usually the grade when some people who can't hack it will pack in. So I'm looking for really strong stance transitions when you're moving from, say, Zenkotsudachi into Kibadachi and stuff like this. You should be showing some power at this point, so I got a little instructor's note. Student must be showing some power at this point, and attitude is extremely important, how you approach the techniques, how you approach what you're doing, just very, very throwing your arms around. Looking for good, strong hip rotation, good, strong deep stances and good spirit. No mistakes are allowed in the kata at this point. And you note the speed and the spirit in kumite with kiais. Kiais are very, very important. Most people just teach kiai. I teach kiai as a weapon. If you look up kakegoi, this is using your voice as a weapon, and everybody uses it. Police screaming at you, they come in through the door, please freeze, get down. They're yelling their heads off, okay? Even people centuries ago going into battle had a battle cry. Noise is very effective. Most people give in to vocal abuse or verbal abuse before they'll give in to physical abuse. It's very, very rare that you just go to physical abuse. It's usually verbal abuse first. And a lot of females and children, they're absolutely cowed with loud noises and people screaming at them. And you can understand this. It's extremely intimidating to have somebody yelling at you, right? Because they're usually physically intimidating as well. But anyway, that's what I'm also looking for, is a good use of ki. I'm watching the breathing, I'm watching the balance, I'm watching everything in there. So that's my grading examination, and my little grading syllabus goes right up to Godan, okay? And people think it gets easier, but from Sandan on, I expect written papers based on a little bit of research that you've done. I'm not interested if the research is done previously, but I want your view on it. And so papers have to be submitted a month before you attempt the grade, and so that I can look at it. And if I've got any questions, then certainly I'm going to bring them out to you. So main theme of each level that we bring through is just improving on previous levels. But we do bring in some different techniques on each level. There's some techniques that aren't included in kata, so you can't just do kata, all right? There's some techniques that aren't included in kata. Now, originally, there was no high kicks in karate. These were brought in by Gigo Funakoshi, Funakoshi's second son. Some people attribute this to different sources. I like to believe it came from French savate, okay? And French savate, I do believe, took the movements from classical ballet, which you have to be extremely fit and flexible for, believe me. I once spent, we were in Newfoundland, and it was a major, major snowstorm. We were there for a national competition probably in the 80s sometime. But there was a major snowstorm and we couldn't get out of the hotel. So we all went down, as we normally do, and were sitting in the hot tub. Now, I always used to put little pieces of tape around my big toe because with the pressure on the floor and the skin being dry on the underside of my foot because it was extremely calloused, it would often split. So just putting a piece of tape around the toe I found worked. So we're all sitting around the hot tub and there was another bunch of young people, men and women came in, and they were from the Winnipeg Ballet Company. Now, Winnipeg has a very famous ballet company and they tour all over Canada, in fact all over the world. And I noticed that quite a few of them had the same tape around the toes. So we all got to talking, and believe me, what those people do for training would make you sick. If you had a commercial school, it would empty out in a day if you did that kind of training. Talk about flexible, muscle tone, muscle definition, but nice people and willing to discuss different training systems. It just turned out to be a great day, just sitting around the hot tub because we couldn't get out because of a snowstorm. So anyway, that was that. So as I say, the main theme for each level, basically we will start on looking at the next kata. Now I teach kata a little differently than a lot of instructors. What I'll do is I take a kata and there's usually a signature move in that kata. And usually the signature move is the one that most students have the most problem with, a signature move. For example, the turn in Heian Shodan, the turns in Heian Shodan, from the very first turn right up until the turn from the ageuki. Now, my belief is when you turn, you throw, okay? This is an easy way of explaining a turn. When you turn, you throw. So if you block down, drive your fist past the opponent and smash with your forearm into his neck, then either garment grab or grab his hair or grab his ear, it doesn't matter, whatever's loose, and then pull back and turn at the same time, that's a throw, okay? So when you get to the ageuki in Heian Shodan, this is very easy. Left hand pulls, punching arm down, right hand comes up, blocks, grabs the head, pull, and turn around on your 270 turn, and you've thrown the guy. So this is a signature move from Heian Shodan, so we'll practice that. And then we'll just look at little applications for individual techniques like shitoki, the tetsui move within Heian Shodan. All of these have a move. Even the move where you're just going gidambarai to your left side to start your line of ageukis or oisukis as you go through. Okay, this is a throw. You could just put your foot in the way and throw the guy. All right. So in Heian Nidan, we look at the signature move in the kata, which is the back fist strike and side snap kick, yokogeri, kiage, urauchi, and that's the signature move there. This is one a lot of students have problems with. They all start to lean away before they do the kick and stuff like that. So we have little drills that we iron out for people to fix the technique so that they get the technique exactly right. Remember, you must always go into your technique. Going away from your technique is not going to do anything for anybody. You just always go into your technique. So when you make that kiage, when you come down, you should be moving the way your kick was and not moving into the shuto. Okay, so that's the signature moves. We'll go through that. We'll go through applications, of which there's quite a lot, and we'll move on. So my friend who messaged me, the psychologist, he was asking me what would be the difference between a commercial dojo and a traditional dojo like we have. So the difference is, and I would say there's like three kinds of dojos. There's commercial dojos, there's sports dojos, and there's traditional dojos. Now, the traditional dojos very often engage in sports, and that's fine, no problem with that. The sport dojos tend to isolate. They'll teach one thing, either kata or kumite, and that's all that particular student focuses upon. I don't know how they do their gradings. I'm not particularly interested. I've even known of people getting gradings over the phone just because some other dojo has maybe earned a grading and they've gone up higher, and so the head instructor's phoned up and goes, okay, well, I heard he's got a fifth dan, so you're a fifth dan now. And that's it, over the phone. And believe me, I know this has happened because it happened to myself. I got a grading, I can't remember, it was 5th or 6th, from Ray Dalkey's association, and my own association awarded me 5th or 6th, I can't remember which one. And straight away, a local dojo, not going to mention any names, guy got a phone call from his instructor and was told he was the same grade as me. So this is the way it goes, okay? So commercial dojos, and these are the Mickey Mouse dojos that you see, probably got 90% kids, and they're only there to take money. Sometimes they run as a franchise. They have you sign contracts, so much for this many years, so much to get you to black belt. And believe me, I've seen guys come in the door and they've been put on a contract to get to black belts, $3,000-$4,000. And it doesn't really mean a thing, right? There's no guarantee that anybody's going to get to black belt. They may not have the attitude for black belt. It's never going to do them any good. You might as well just say, give me $3,000, here's your black belts, see ya, right? And that's basically the way it is. And the franchise dojos just get up my nose. Most of the time, the people who are teaching in them have no qualifications whatsoever. They've just got the black belt from the franchise owner. He said, okay, well, I'll supply all your uniforms and all the rest of it, and here's what you teach, and you get the lessons in the post. And I know it sounds ridiculous, but this does go on, all right? So that's one kind of a commercial dojo. The other kind of commercial dojo, and we've had it right here in Calgary, is they sign up and they call it family karate, okay? There's no kumite, there's no sparring, okay? Well, straight away that's going to tell you there's something wrong. But some people want that. They just want to go around and tell people that they're such and such a grade in karate. They don't care who they got the grade from, which of course matters. It's like saying, I've got a Lamborghini, but it wasn't made by Lamborghini. It was made by Joe Blow down the street in his garage at night. You know, of course he hasn't got a Lamborghini. And it's the same with these guys who come out and they go, well, I got a 7th dan from so-and-so. And you see them on the social media all the time, guys, oh, I've got 10 dan in this discipline and 10 dan in this discipline. And I only have one word for those people, wanker. That's it, you are. You're just playing with yourself, okay? So the commercial dojo that we had, this family karate thing, I couldn't be more scornful. And I've met the guy who did it. And he trained under me years ago and decided he wasn't making enough money, so he pulled this stunt. So you get family karate. You had to grade every 3 months, whether you're ready or not. You couldn't fail because if you didn't know your kata, one of the senior students or black belts of this guy would do the kata alongside you. It didn't really matter how you did the kata, you were guaranteed to pass. As soon as you got your black belt, you had to open a dojo and you had to buy all your equipment from the guy who ran the place, okay? So that to me is nothing to do with karate. Unfortunately, they just stick the name to it and it's bad. It's really bad. So what can you do? You know, I'm sure there's lots of other disciplines and even businesses that have the same kind of problem with imposters and fakes and are just absolute wankers. Okay? So as I say, I'm very pleased with my grading guide and syllabus that I put out many years ago. I think it kind of sets our tone for what we do and how we do it. If you come out of my club with a black belt, you're not going to get it in 5 minutes. You're not going to get it in 2 or 3 years. It's usually around 5 to 6 years of constant training and effort and dedication and perseverance and resilience. You need resilience to get yourself through any little injuries that you got and stuff like that. A little bit of my background, I took 8 years to get to Shodan, okay? And why did I take 8 years? Is because I just struggled with grading. I couldn't get my mind closed down enough. I used to get really nervous. And the worst part of it was my kumite. I would go out to kill the guy, wanting to make a good impression, when I honestly believe that what the instructor, Hanratty Sensei, graded me, he wanted to see me control the fight rather than kill the other guy. I think in the end, I took my Shodan 4 times. He just got fed up seeing me. and passed me. I remember passing quite clearly. It was in Cardiff, underneath the cricket ground in Cardiff, and I remember the way in order to do grading, you did all your Kion, all your basics first, and then you did your Kumite, and if you'd passed, then he asked you to do another kata. And most of the time I never got asked to do another kata, but this time I did. And as soon as I got asked to do my other kata, and I always remember it was Heian Shodan, I just calmed right down and thought, okay, I've got this far. This is the farthest I've ever got. I'm really going to do my best. And obviously it was good enough, and I was really happy about that. And also I never even knew that you got a certificate for your downgrade until it showed up in the post. And being honest, I was more impressed with the envelope than I was with the certificate. And I was even more impressed was that I was given a black belt with Anoida's name on it. And it's practically worn through a couple of strings right now, but it's hanging on my wall. And I think it's just perseverance and dedication and the satisfaction of knowing that you've achieved something that you set out to do and you've tried all your life to get better at it. That's what gives me a sense of satisfaction in what I do. Anyway, it's just my thoughts on how I grade and how other people grade. And if you've got anything to say, well, let me know about it. Okay, take care.